The original Legacy of Goku is not only considered the worst game of the trilogy, but perhaps one of the least favorable Dragon Ball games to ever hit the market. But why exactly is that? The Legacy of Goku launched on the Game Boy Advance in May of 2002, making it one of the first Dragon Ball games to get a release in North America. You see, at this point in time, I, like many others, had been a dedicated Dragon Ball fan for what felt like countless years. And in all that time, we didn't have any games, aside from maybe... So you can imagine my excitement one late spring evening when I finally saw something I had been waiting for ages. An advertisement showcasing something that has cemented its appearance in my brain to this very day. A commercial of a teenage boy turning Super Saiyan in the back of his parents' car. A commercial announcing the launch of my very first Dragon Ball Z game, The Legacy of Goku.
Dragon Ball Z, The Legacy of Goku, now on Game Boy Advance. Dragon Ball Z, The Legacy of Goku. Now you can get powered up.
Although selling relatively well throughout the entirety of the GBA lifespan, Legacy Goku received mixed reviews by the majority of critics and gamers who were expecting just a bit more of a sophisticated experience. I myself can remember having my expectations through the roof to not only be disappointed, but downright appalled at what they did to my boy. But in retrospect, having considerably much lower expectations, I wondered if there was anything I'd actually enjoy about the game. And to get an answer to this burning question, I replayed it 22 years later. And in this video, we'll discuss why the Legacy of Goku was so poorly received, the qualities that help redeem it today, and the ins and outs of the game as a whole. Now, I want to start this video off by stating I had a fairly good time playing this game, at least compared to what my expectations were. But that's still not saying this game is any good. One of the first positive things that I noticed, and I promise I'm not going to base this review strictly off nostalgia, is that the intro, especially the accompanying music, gave me an immediate rush of deja vu. The first few chords literally sent shivers down my spine. That's how recognizable and nostalgic this intro is. You see, I was very young when playing this game for the first time, and it always amazes me how a certain image or sound can take you back to a time in your life that you may have forgotten previously. But along with an influx of nostalgia came the memories of why I was so frustrated with this game as a kid. The Legacy of Goku being a handheld RPG from the early 2000s, if you don't include options, only has one singular mode. And that's, of course, story mode. What I find interesting about this trilogy is that each entry covers about a third of the story. This one in particular, excluding a Star Wars inspired opening, starts off immediately at the arrival of Raditz and ends at Frieza's defeat on Namek. Now, this is something I do wish more anime games would incorporate, as it allows the player to take more time exploring each unique portion of the story while explaining every plot point. However, while the two sequels did this exceptionally well, this game in particular fell short. Literally. The problem here is Goku is the only playable character, and while he is the main hero and in the title of the game, he is, well, he's dead for the vast majority of the Saiyan arc, and traveling to Namek alone for at least half of the Frieza arc, giving the game a rather short runtime and also bypassing crucial plot points. For instance, upon Vegeta's defeat, the game immediately cuts to Goku landing on Namek, skipping over everything up until Goku vs. Raccoon. This is also around the point where I noted to myself, the game could have really benefited from including Gohan, Krillin, Piccolo, and even Vegeta as a late game unlockable character. That being said, they do attempt to make up for this, at least to some extent, by padding the game out with additional quests, some being more sensical than others. However, most of them aren't technically side quests, as you'll need to complete them to progress through the game. For example, there's an early quest where you'll retrieve 3, we'll just call them Playboy magazines, for Master Roshi in order for Raditz to appear, with, may I add, Chi-Chi's face on them. This game was rated E, or better yet, to reach the Ginyu Force, you'll have to gather 3 Namekian artifacts, which is bonkers. I don't know how else to describe it. The first 2 are easy enough in plain sight, just guarded by a crap ton of enemies. But that last one, inside the temple, holy f***. To summarize, it's basically a maze where you have to keep guessing which teleport pad to walk onto. And there's about 5 in each room, 3 of those bring you back to the very start of the temple. And there's about 20 rooms in total. This can get extremely frustrating if you don't know what you're doing. And I swear, as a kid, if this game wasn't Dragon Ball Z, this is around the time I would have never touched it again. But anything DBZ, I have to beat. No question. Luckily, I had some vague recollection of where to go, especially for the hidden passages, so it only took about 3 or so tries. But this is undoubtedly the most frustrating part of the game, and many, including myself, can never forget it. I will say though, I am to some extent glad they took the opportunity to incorporate some of these additional filler missions, like Goku going to hell, being able to explore it, and having to save 3 ghosts, fighting Princess Snake on Snake Way, and even doing those little tedious missions on King Kai's planet, because those are things we definitely don't get to see in games very often. And while minimal, the ability to do some optional exploration is something I found really fun, like finding Korin hidden on the lookout and getting a senzu bean in return. The most notable of these quests though, at least for me, is the large amount of filler quests you have to do before fighting Raditz. Something about this part in the woods is engraved into my mind, still to this day. From the first wolf to the old dude with the cat. Probably because this took so many damn tries. And the reason this took so long is because the combat is terrible. Now, like I said, I still had a fun time grinding and whatnot, but as soon as you fight the first wolf, you know something is terribly wrong. I mean, trust me, I get it. It's an RPG, but these wolves are still OP, man. Now, OP enemies isn't the only reason the combat is scuffed. Oh no. You have to be at a very certain angle to hit your enemies, making it extremely easy to miss and take some serious damage in the process. And the entirety of Goku's movement feels very stiff and awkward. But to make things easier, you unlock new attacks as you progress, starting with just the Ki Blast, but then getting Solar Flare from old dude with cat. Who is this guy? And finally, it is a small list, but for the first game of a trilogy and for just one character, I thought it was just enough. Still, the issues with the combat will become even more apparent once you reach the boss levels. Most villains will just walk around aimlessly, even after you've engaged with them in battle. And as soon as you walk the tiniest bit off screen, they completely lose sight of you and seemingly lose any recollection they were fighting you in the first place. Every villain is like this. Also, once you get Solar Flare, you'll quickly realize it is your best friend. Every fight is just stun your opponent, punch, 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 run away, and stun again. Or on the flip side, back up, Kamehameha, rinse, and repeat. Every fight. It gets really boring and repetitive very quickly. You can tell from little flaws like this that the game was very rushed and probably extremely underfunded. This is also extremely obvious if you played Legacy Goku 2 or Boo's Fury, because the increase in quality between Legacy Goku 1 and 2 is massive. Like, I don't think I've seen anything like it before. Now, I wanted to make this review as honest as possible, and there are a lot of flaws in this game. But I still had a pretty good time playing. And I also still feel like the main issue is that the only character playable is Goku. If we had 5 or even 4 or even 3 playable characters, it would have been a game changer. Trust. Something I enjoyed about the combat was the level system. They really made grinding feel like it was not just worth my time, but also necessary. There's a level cap of only 25. And since it's so low, each new level up is a major boost. Seriously, it felt so rewarding. One punching a wolf, when 1 level earlier, it took my life with ease. And don't get me started on those endgame Frieza henchmen. That felt good. Each level up will also grant you additional strength, HP, ki, and flight time, which the flight function I could have gone without. You'll notice in the beginning of the game, you move ridiculously slow, incrementally gaining more speed as you progress, but making early enemies very difficult to avoid. This is where flight comes in handy, making avoiding enemies and traversing the cliffs much easier. Initially, your flight time will be aggravatingly low. To counter this, you could pick up feathers. Yellow ones giving you minimal flight time, and in the late game, red ones giving you a good deal more. In addition, you can also stack senzu beans for full health recovery and up to 6 herbs, which will regain 1/4 of your health each. These will be extremely useful for bosses like Nappa and Vegeta, who will likely take quite some time to defeat, even with your enhanced arsenal. But oddly enough, Frieza arc bosses will be straight pushovers. Seriously, the hardest villains here are the Frieza soldiers near the ship. If you've been grinding a bit, the Ginyu Forest is an absolute joke, taking only a few hits each to put out their misery. And Frieza himself won't be much of a challenge if you've level capped at 25 by this point. Interestingly enough, Frieza will showcase all 4 of his forms against Goku in the final battle. Now, I do have stuff to say about this. While I do appreciate them including these in some form, no pun intended, this again would have been much more fleshed out and fun to play through if, say, we had Vegeta fight Frieza's first form, Piccolo fight Frieza's second form, Gohan and Krillin fight his third form, each getting their own respective final battles that align to some degree with the canon. It all feels like way too much buildup for some lackluster showdown. Although the Super Saiyan fight at the end against Frieza is really cool visually. There's lightning everywhere and the battlefield is sort of grayed out, giving this eerie vibe that is very representative of how the battle played out in the anime. But beyond that fight, there is nothing left to accomplish. 0 replayability, no hidden unlockable character, no post-game content, but still, even so, there were some redeeming qualities to the game that I didn't expect to find. And before we do wrap up, let's briefly discuss an overview of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Legacy of Goku. On the positive side, being a longtime Dragon Ball Z fan and having extreme nostalgia for my very first Dragon Ball game, I did truly enjoy taking this trip down memory lane. The grinding was fun and felt very rewarding. The inclusion of areas like Snake Way, HFIL, and exploring Namek as Goku were fun filler quests that help expand the game beyond just the usual fights that you'd expect from a Dragon Ball game. The OST is absolutely incredible and fits perfectly with a Dragon Ball RPG game. The graphics, although definitely enhanced in the sequels, are pretty good for their time, and I honestly was relatively impressed and surprised they held up so well. You could tell the devs had a smaller budget, but for what they were working with, the game is good. I mean, it's playable. On the contrary, while I could nitpick the hell out of this game, Legacy of Goku suffered from 2 main issues. The combat is ridiculously tedious, especially since the major enemies can be so damn oblivious all the time, to the point where you could just completely forget you're in the midst of a major battle and literally have a full-on conversation with an NPC. And well, the attacks we got would have been fine if they had added more characters into the mix. Let's just say keep Goku exactly the way he is, but then add Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, and even Krillin into the mix, each with their own respective special abilities. The game would have been a lot less repetitive and way more fulfilling. Which takes me back to another one of my earlier points. The game was way too short. There are so many crucial moments with the main cast that are completely skipped over, like Gohan training for the Saiyans or Vegeta's rampage on Namek. The entirety of the Frieza fight with the Z Warriors would have been so fun to play through. And at the end of the day, because I wanted this review to be as expansive as possible, I clocked in at about 3 hours and 30 minutes of gameplay. This is with me exploring every nook and cranny of each explorable area, dying a few times in the process, and grinding to the max level while taking notes for my video. So that being said, you could easily half this time playing normally, which is rather underwhelming. But at the end of the day, I did have a good time playing this game, whether it's for laughs, nostalgia, or just enjoying playing a classic Dragon Ball game. It's all good fun, and I definitely recommend, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, to check this out. If you're not, you probably won't enjoy it very much, if I'm being honest, but it's a fun classic game. I love it for those reasons. Dislike it for some others, but in the end, fun game. Anyway guys, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe. I'm really trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I know I can do it with you guys' support, so thank you so much. Leave a comment below what you want to see next, what you thought of the video, feedback, love, hate. I respond to almost every comment, so again, thank you guys so much for everything. Love you all, and until next time, peace.